Hey guys, welcome to the Freedom to Flourish podcast. I'm Dr. Joel Miller here with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Tim Augustyniak. Today we're talking about New Year's resolutions as we step into 2025. I hope you guys have had a great Christmas, a great holiday, and I hope that as you kind of get closer to this new year that you're able to take a step back and reflect on what this last year has had in store, all the goods, all the highs, all the lows, and everything in between. And as we kind of step into this new year, Dr. Tim and I wanted to kind of start talking about some New Year's resolutions. Obviously, that's a hot topic as we get to closer to January 1st, and people are kind of coming up with different plans. So from your holistic doctors, what does that look like? What are we encouraging patients to consider and think about? That's kind of what this episode is intended for. Dr. Tim, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here with you. New Year's resolutions. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, it's great to be here. I want to apologize to everybody for not having an episode for last week. Christmas just kind of kicked our butts. We couldn't coordinate time, and I got sick over the holiday, and so it just wrecked everything. So we thought, let's just start fresh with a New Year's resolution episode. Quite honestly, the traditional sense, I'm not a huge fan of New Year's resolutions for the sake of people just do too much. And they have these giant lofty goals of like, oh, I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 100 days, and it's just doesn't make sense to have these goals that are way too lofty, and implementing these strategies in your health, your diet, your exercise habits, that just are not practical. I think the biggest thing about New Year's resolutions that keeps people from actually achieving their goals is trying to do things that they can't sustain, things that they really don't enjoy or can't find ways to enjoy them, and things that are just so extreme that it can be difficult to stick to, whether you're disciplined or not. And most people, the reason that they're starting fresh in the new year or something is because the discipline hasn't been there in the past. And so it's this perfect storm of lack of discipline, lofty goals, and being too aggressive with things, and then doing things that you're not accustomed to and don't really enjoy all that much. And so it's really difficult to stick with it. So with New Year's resolutions, the one thing that we really, really encourage, or at least, enjoy, is if you were thinking about doing a New Year's resolution, find ways to make it something that's sustainable. There are awesome, good habits that you can implement in your life that everybody can to be healthier. And if you're thinking about changing habits at any point, New Year's resolution is a good time to do it. Start the year off fresh, gain some momentum and really kind of kick butt with your health. But find ways to ease into things, take baby steps, and make it more sustainable, more enjoyable for yourself. So in that way, you actually keep the habits going. Because before we hopped on here, we just talked about, what is it, like National Quitter's Day or something like that?
Yeah.
Where 2 weeks after New Year's Day is the day that whatever the statistic is, 90+% or whatever it is of New Year's resolutioners have abandoned their New Year's resolution. And that number is exceptionally high. And when it comes to health stuff, that number shouldn't be so high. We should be able to stick to some healthy habits. But it's a matter of finding things that you can keep up and enjoy and actually feel good doing. So hopefully we can provide some good insight, at least some different avenues of critical thinking about this problem, how to practically go about this issue, and what things that we think are good to implement as a New Year's resolution. It's not always just diet, exercise, things like that. Maybe it's educating yourself on your health conditions that you have and developing a health strategy moving forward in ways beyond just diet, exercise. There's plenty of things that we can get into on this topic, but we'll just see where this episode takes us.
Yep. Love it. Yeah, Dr. Tim, where you kind of harp on the sustainability, I kind of come at it from a slightly different angle, which is it really complements what you're saying, which is if you have something that's so lofty, maybe you have too many goals, maybe you stretch yourself thin. There's so many different things there.
Mhm.
But essentially what I have found is if you don't have a strategy, then you essentially have nothing to fall back on. A lot of people will make all these lofty goals, and there's a lot of research that shows there's actually a dopamine hit when you talk about your goals and when you think about your goals, but the action that should follow gives zero dopamine. That's why you see people that make different goals in life and they love to share with people their goals. But as when it comes to actually getting down to the nitty gritty of what are you doing every single day to get there, most people don't reach that place because it doesn't feel good. And so a lot of people make these goals, but they don't actually take the time to develop a strategy and actually get into a lot of the details with, okay, how is this going to work? Let's break that down. What does this look like day to day? And trying to create something that is reasonable. One of my favorite quotes from the Atomic Habits book written by James Clear. One of my favorite quotes there, he says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." And so essentially going back to, just because your goal is great, you want to lose 20 pounds this year or over the next 6 months, that's a great goal. But what does your system look like? How are you day to day? What are you doing every single day to get there? So we'll talk about that a little bit more and what that looks like. But I also love what you mentioned there, in that, hey, there's so many goals. You kind of touched on this a little bit. There's so many goals that we can have outside of, just lose weight or just be healthier. When it comes to just really our health in general, right? So obviously some people might want to make more money this year. Some people might want to be more social and things like that. But when it comes to health, yeah, we talk about nutrition. We talk about, maybe seeking professional help if you have a certain condition and you just want to get on top of things. But there's other things too that we'll get into, like how about increasing movement? How about spending more time with God? How about spending more time resting? Things like that. So different little things that we'll get into. But Dr. Tim, let's kind of start here. One of the things we talked about was, practical tips. We'll kind of go down our list and we'll kind of eventually put this all together. But if you have a specific condition, and most people that are kind of listening to our episodes, usually they have something going on, either a specific condition that they know about and they haven't fully addressed, or just some different things with their health that they feel like needs to be optimized. If you have a specific condition, practical tip number one is to educate yourself, develop a strategy, and then practically implement it. And then kind of leading into practical tip number two, one of the things with educating yourself, if we kind of break this down, is go and spend time learning. So what that means is if you deal with irritable bowel syndrome, or you deal with chronic acne, you deal with hormone imbalances, whatever it is, educate yourself. So look through our past episodes that we have done. We've hit not every single condition, but we've hit a lot of them. And just scroll through on a piece of paper on your phone, note which ones might be helpful for you. And then over the next 1 to 2 weeks, really plan and spend time actually listening to those episodes and actually taking notes on different things that you can take away from that, that you're learning about it. And then also different notes about, okay, what are 1 or 2 or 3 things from each episode that you can actually implement that as part of your kind of New Year's resolutions to help you kind of get towards that goal. So Dr. Tim, other than kind of our episodes, is there anything else that you kind of love to encourage patients with? There's a lot of information out there, but really just kind of as far as that education piece or even developing that strategy, what are some of the thoughts that you might have for our listeners?
I think that harping on this to educate yourself beyond just a specific condition is super important. So I'd like to broaden it even more. Whatever you would like to do for your New Year's resolution, make sure if it's anything related to health or habits, things like that, make sure you do your research first. Because it's very easy to be like, oh yeah, I can go vegan and I'll be really, really healthy, because there's a lot of stuff out there that may say that's healthy. But we would argue that point extensively. It's, in our opinion, that's really, really not a healthy habit. And some of our least healthy patients oftentimes are vegans or vegetarians. And so just an example of a situation where if you don't do thorough research and look at things from different angles, you might fall into something that's really not going to be the best for health. Or, a lot of people will say, let's start the New Year's off by intermittent fasting because I hear it's really, really good for you. And if it's, if you're a 110 pound, 5'5" woman, intermittent fasting is probably not going to be great for you. Intermittent fasting is something that's awesome for those who are high insulin, insulin resistant, kind of getting towards that type 2 diabetic range. Those that have more chronically high blood sugar. Those who have chronically low blood sugar tend to be of normal size. They don't eat enough to fuel themselves enough. And intermittent fasting will just make that problem worse. It'll drive anxiety through the roof. It'll drive stress through the roof. It can lead to more problems. So just make sure that you understand how the habits that you're trying to employ are going to impact your health, because it can be really counterproductive to do things that are really good for you. I know it's rocket science. Things that are bad for you aren't going to be good for you. Who'd thought? But it takes a lot of research and educating yourself and looking at things from different sources, especially with the internet the way it is nowadays, to understand what is the best strategy for yourself. And that kind of brings it right back to that point of if you have some kind of health condition and you want help fixing something, there are a lot of things that you can fix on your own, a lot of metabolic issues, a lot of blood sugar issues, things like that. You can feel a whole lot better if you eat properly, exercise, all that stuff. But then there are things that are beyond that require, say supplementation with herbs, antioxidants, maybe you need metals that need chelating, things like that, where if you don't work with a practitioner to help you with that, it can be really difficult to solve that problem. And the chance of you doing that is probably pretty low. And so make sure you educate yourself to understand what goes into fixing your problem, but then be humble enough to understand that sometimes you're going to need help to fix that. But it goes beyond specific health conditions. Whether you want to change your diet, whether you want to exercise more, things like that. Make sure you educate yourself and understand that exercise habits may require eating a certain way. If you're going to start CrossFit all of a sudden, you're going to need a lot of protein and fat. Say, you're going to start training for a marathon. Doing low carb is probably not going to be your best bet. And so, understanding that there's this give and take between fueling your body and exerting energy for exercise and all that stuff, they all together. Educating yourself really is super important when it comes to this. So anyway, that's all I'd add for that. So when we say educate yourself, what, in your opinion, are the best ways that people can do that to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, all that stuff?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think a lot of people I really think a lot of people have that question because it's like, well, where do I even start? There's so much information on the internet.
Yeah.
There's so many YouTube videos and TikToks and Reels and all these different things. And a lot of doctors on Instagram, we've kind of talked about this, right? I think there's a lot of amazing doctors on Instagram. Those are the people that I personally follow. I know you follow a few as well. And so one thing I'll encourage patients with is feel free to use my list of whoever I follow on Instagram and so forth, and consider following those people. I usually don't follow people just for no reason on Instagram. I'm usually following either colleagues that I know that they know what they're talking about and they're really, really good at what they do, or other people that I've come across online that, hey, I really like this person's stuff and they know what they're talking about. So to the listener that's maybe not sure exactly where to start or who to follow, I would say go check out the list of people that I follow on Instagram. And I think you're going to probably find a number of different new names that have really, really good content and information. And then if you do follow us, generally every once in a while, I'm trying to post different things reposting from other people. So the people that I repost, usually they're pretty good things. I'm not going to repost and put something on my page that is someone or someone's page that I largely disagree with. I'm usually not going to be doing that. But I would say feel free to use me as an example. Follow, check out the people that I follow and consider that. And then on the other hand, one of the things I always recommend is like just do different searches. Go on YouTube, search your condition, just listen to different things. And you're going to start to listen as you go through different videos, listen to different podcasts. You're going to find certain people you can tell they know what they're talking about. And then you're going to find other people that, I don't feel like they're, as maybe helpful in some departments. And so I'm really just going on YouTube, looking up different podcasts, and then really just following a lot of these different doctors that are really, really good. I would say that's kind of the top things that I've said. Because when I personally go and I'm like looking for just different resources, looking to even learn more myself about different things that I'm not super comfortable with, that's the problem. Information overload. If you go to Google and you search stuff, good luck. You're going to find the things that Google wants you to find. You should probably go to DuckDuckGo instead to find things that aren't going to be suppressed and all that stuff. But that's kind of another story for another time. All right, Dr. Tim, let's jump into this a little bit. So we've got the education piece. Now, developing a strategy, obviously that's going to look different depending on the goal. But there's a couple different things that that I think we've both kind of come across over the years and different things that we'll talk about with health. We've talked about this already a little bit, but essentially you want to obviously have your goal. And then in developing your strategy, you want to do that through an educated means. You want to, whether you're listening to different podcasts, talking to different doctors, maybe you need that professional help Dr. Tim talked about. And so you schedule an appointment, things like that. But your strategy should generally include a number of different perspectives on things. And as Dr. Tim said, you don't want it to be something that's not sustainable. So you want a strategy that's sustainable, but something that you can do, something that you can implement easily and practically. But also, don't be afraid to kind of create a strategy that also pushes you a little bit as well. And takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit. All right, Dr. Tim, I want to get to some basic recommendations for people as far as just overall health goes going into the new year. Obviously, when people have, for example, want to lose 20 pounds or want to get rid of my arthritis or want to get rid of my autoimmune condition, whatever the complaint is, want to balance my gut health and hormones. The strategy and the steps is going to be specific for each person. It's going to look very different for each person. But as far as in general, developing a strategy and then practically implementing it, is there anything else that you would add to that? If not, let's kind of jump into just some basic recommendations for people that in general we can do to improve our health this year.
The only thing that we really haven't touched on when it comes to formulating and implementing your strategy is basically just taking baby steps. Say your goal is, I want to heal my rheumatoid arthritis. It's not like tomorrow, like at the snap of a finger, that your RA is going to be gone. You need to do some things along the way that are going to slowly inch you further and further towards that goal. And if you're trying to go from just eating like crap, eating fast food all the time, or just not eating a whole lot as a whole, drinking lots of coffee, lots of energy drinks, not sleeping good, not exercising, you're going from basically a blank slate when it comes to health strategies to wanting to do this incredible feat of getting your rheumatoid arthritis asymptomatic. And so it's not like you're going to go from eating McDonald's all the time and not exercising to automatically running marathons and powerlifting and just eating super clean. And so, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so you need to find these small little pieces that you can implement super easily and start that dopamine surge early on to help that habit and get you moving in the right direction. Even reflecting on our episode we did a couple weeks ago about addiction, and people who just suck at implementing these strategies and sticking to them, they are addicted to the things that are not healthy for them. You need to shift that mindset slowly over time into being addicted to the things that are good for you. And then the way that you do that is one little thing at a time. And so say your Achilles heel is soda, say you drink 3 sodas a day. Well, try to narrow it down to 2. And then once you get really good at just having 2, only have 1. And then once you're really good at just having 1, try totally eliminating it and try, say, like a seltzer water or something like that instead. It's not like, hey, get rid of all these things that you have been addicted to for a long time, and then I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. It's, hey, maybe you start by going on a walk. Try going on a walk every day for like 20 or 30 minutes. And once that's a habit, hey, why don't we just incorporate 1 day at the gym? And then once you're walking, go to the gym for a day, let's add another day going to the gym. And even if it is just going to the gym and walking the treadmill at the gym, it's building that habit of getting your butt in the door. It can be the smallest little movement in the right direction. But even reflecting on, Dr. Jordan Peterson, he's a clinical psychologist who's really, really big in taking responsibility for your actions, taking responsibility for your life. And one of the biggest things that he harps on is these small little strategies to get you from point A to point B 1 step at a time. And one example that he uses is, you get all these young college kids that just want to change the world, a big government standpoint. They want to go to all these protests and do all this stuff. They want to push all this policy. But then if you were to walk into their apartments, you got food wrappers everywhere, there's garbage everywhere, they don't make their bed, they're wearing dirty laundry, and they're broke, they've got all kinds of credit card debt, yet they're trying to tell everybody else what to do. And so his strategies revolve around fixing yourself from the ground up 1 step at a time before you try to do bigger things in life. And so I'm not saying, start your New Year's resolutions to rule the world, but if your big goal is change your rheumatoid arthritis and fix it, you need to start by doing small things. And he always uses the example of, okay, well, if your house is a mess and you just can't get yourself to clean up, well, start with the smallest possible thing. Organize your underwear drawer, organize 1 drawer of your clothes, and then let that be your activity for the day. And then the next day, why don't we do 2 drawers? And then the next day, well, why don't we reorganize the whole closet and get everything in order? And let's vacuum 1 room, let's vacuum, 2 rooms the next day. 1 step after the other, getting you from point A to point B, even if it's super slow, as long as you reach the end goal, that should be the goal. It can't be, I want this now. Our world is full of so much instant gratification. We need to be in the understanding that whatever little change you make today is going to be better in the long run. So, step by step, find something that makes it more and more achievable for you and helps you gain that momentum every day. Don't size yourself up to everybody else that's doing their New Year's resolutions and just jump in and stick to it and outwardly seem like they're doing that, because like we just said, there's like 90+% of people that don't stick to it after 2 weeks. If you make it past the 2-week mark, you're doing pretty good. They say it takes 3 to 4 weeks to build a brand new habit that's going to stick. And so for the first month or so, it might suck, and it probably is going to. But if you get past that point and it's something that you just incorporate into your day, just keep it going, that's when you can start to really feel like you're being successful and making some really, really good change that will be more sustainable. So baby steps along the way, gain that momentum, and just shoot for that 3 to 4 week mark. 3 to 4 weeks, I don't know about you, Dr. Joel, but in my life, a month goes by at the snap of a finger. It just flies by, where we do all kinds of stuff on the weekends, and then during the week, my week is just gone immediately because I, with patients all day. And so time flies. And so when you're building this habit, of course, it probably doesn't move as fast because it's the new change that you're probably not having a right. Fun with. But even still, once you get into it, you get, past the first week and the second week, it's going to move faster. Then, getting the third week, it's going to move faster. And once you reach that point, you've developed a habit, and now you just need to stick with it. So that's my long rambling on what you can do to break it down to whatever appropriate level you need to. This is totally different for everybody. Whether it's a small change or a big change, you're going to be making change. You're moving towards that finish line. So whatever you got to do.
I like it.
But
I like it. Here's some basic health recommendations that you can easily add if you're not super sure where to start with the New Year's resolutions. Here's some basic things that I've kind of put together, and Dr. Tim definitely chime in on this too. Movement is super important. Try walking 7,000 steps a day. Try walking 7,000 steps a day. What I've generally found is if I can set aside 2 kind of times in the day to walk for about 20 minutes each, maybe 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, I'll hit that. I'll hit that 7,000 step mark. And so when I say walk 7,000 steps a day, basically what that entails is going on walks. Go on a couple walks a day. One longer walk, 2 walks a day, something like that. Dr. Tim, with nutrition, we talk about eating more protein. Eating more protein goes a long way. How much protein should we be generally eating, Dr. Tim? What do you recommend for people?
there's a lot of different takes on that, so I struggle to provide an exact number. People will say 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day. Some people will say 1 gram of protein per ideal body weight per day. Because of course, if you're trying to lose weight, well, you got some added fat in there. But say you want to be 160 pounds. Well, 160-ish grams of protein per day would be pretty ideal. Or lean body mass in grams of protein per day. And that can be a bit more difficult to assess. The lean body mass is basically anything that's not fat. And depending on, how overweight you are, things like that, that roughly speaking is probably anywhere from 15 to 30% in your somewhat average person of your body weight is going to be fat. So, maybe 70% of your body weight, doing that in grams of protein per day would be full.
Yep, that's good. As a general basic, one of the things I first tell people, Dr. Tim, is to actually take 1 or 2 days and track how much protein you get each meal. So whatever you're eating, read the label or measure out how much you're eating and just track for 1 or 2 days how much protein. Because a lot of people, if I found that if I say, hey, you want to get 100 grams of protein a day, I found a lot of people are like, how much is that? How much food is that? And so generally, if you track just for a day or two, you'll have a much better idea of how much you're actually getting. I generally agree with everything there, Dr. Tim. I usually just recommend people focus on hitting that 100 grams mark. Obviously, based on weight and everything, it's going to be different, but aim for that 100 grams. That's going to be around 30 grams to 40 grams of protein per meal. That's usually a solid place to aim for. Eat less processed foods, eat more whole foods. That's a super basic recommendation, but by changing that, there's so many good benefits in your health. We're seeing so many different chemicals and so many different things in the processed foods, and hoping through RFK Jr. and other means that we can get rid of those things in America, but focus on whole foods. Any food that has one ingredient, an avocado has one ingredient, avocado. Grass-fed beef, one ingredient, grass-fed beef. Focus on those whole foods. Couple other super basic things here. Avoid sugar. This is kind of a fun one. Obviously, this is not something that a lot of people want to do. This is not something that people will set their New Year's resolutions on to do for the whole year. But avoiding sugar, processed sugar, or eating less sugar goes so far. So again, number one, the kind of the mindset there would be first identify, okay, where's the sugar coming from in my nutrition, in my diet, and then number two, what kind of steps can we slowly start taking that will build momentum to get that out. Maximize sleep. Do you have a consistent sleep schedule? Are you looking at a screen every night before bed? Are you eating too close to bed, drinking caffeine too late in the evening or afternoon? Is your room fairly dark? Do you have a fan on, maybe some weighted blankets, things like that? All those things can help maximize sleep. So again, couple basic things here. You could add so many things to this list. Hydration, you could add so many different things. Start taking supplements. But really, again, just kind of starting small with things. Wanted to give kind of a few just kind of general recommendations, a couple things to kind of think about. Dr. Tim, as I'm walking through those things, is there anything you might add to that before we kind of start wrapping up here?
I just think that whatever you do, to our listeners, whatever you do to start making that step in the right direction, that is automatically a win. That is automatically better than what you were doing before.
Yep.
So there's no change that is too big or too small to start with.
Yep.
Whatever you can do to start with your health is better. A lot of patients walk out of our, of course, first visits and say, oh, that's a lot. It's kind of overwhelming. Ask any questions, and they're like, not right now. I can't even think of what I could even ask because there's just so much information that you just provided me. But there's always questions that come up, and there's always things that can evolve over time with that. And so with these changes, I always like to harp on with new patients. Although you may not 100% stick to the recommendations that I provide you at your first visit, as long as you're, taking your supplements, 2/3 or 3/4 of the time, you're gonna feel better. As long as you're, following low FODMAP or whatever dietary recommendation I provide, for the most part, you're gonna feel better. And of course, there's a needle that moves of how strictly somebody needs to adhere to recommendations that I provide in the office, and it's difficult to place exactly where that is. But as long as it is steps in the right direction, it is improvement.
I like it. I agree. Every step helps. Dr. Tim, I think that this has been good. I hope this has been helpful to our listener. And as we're kind of running out of time here, coming close to the end, I'm trying to think about any last little pieces that I would share with our listener. And I don't think I have a whole lot, other than if you don't know where to start somewhere. Take one step, and after that, take another step, and just keep going forward. As long as you're moving forward, you're not going to stay in the same place, and you can't be stopped. The only person that gets stopped is the one that quits. And so make a goal, develop a strategy, find little ways to implement that. Start slow if you need to. And then just remember that the only person that's really able to stop you is going to be you. It's going to be you. Dr. Tim, before we wrap up here, any last things? Otherwise, share with our listeners how they can find you, how they can get a hold of you.
Last little bit, don't go vegan. That's all I gotta say. If you're changing your diet, don't go vegan. Don't go vegetarian. That's my best recommendation. Plenty of protein, plenty of fats from animal sources is going to be awesome for you. That's just me throwing it out there. So anyway, let's wrap this thing up. So I'm Dr. Tim Augustyniak here at Flourish Functional Wellness Center down in Ville, Arkansas. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out. Provide us any sort of suggestions for future episodes, things like that. You can find me online at draugustyniak.com. That's DrAugustyniak.com. On the homepage, I've got links to my website. My booking site, my socials, as well as all of my contact info. So anything you can come up with that you would like to reach out for, just feel free to let me know.
Love it. My name's Dr. Joel Miller. You can find me online at drjoelmiller.com. You can find most of my socials just by searching in Dr. Joel Miller, YouTube, Instagram, all that fun stuff. Guys, so thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, this is going to be the last episode, at least, that we've recorded here in 2024. We're excited for 2025. We thank you guys for all the support. Let us know, guys, if there's any topics you want us to cover. Leave comments. We love hearing your comments. We have patients that come in every week that talk about the podcast and comment on different things, different episodes helped them, and all that fun stuff. So we do this for you guys. We hope this is a blessing to you, and we're excited for 2025, and I'm sure that you are too. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you guys in the next one.